talk a little bit about priorities. Let's talk a little bit about time management, all right? This is a skill I learned the hard way a few years ago. My business is growing. I think this is like 2017, so we're talking 5-6 years ago. I'm sitting, come home from work, we have dinner as a family, and then I go and sit in my little like office nook at my desk, and I'm answering a couple of text messages on my phone. And I'm texting, and my daughter's about 2 years old, maybe 2.5 at the time. And as I'm texting after dinner, you know, it's like 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, my daughter comes over to me, Penelope, and starts tugging at my shirt. Says, Daddy, will you come and play with me? I was like, yeah, hang on one second, baby. I'm texting. You know, 2-year-olds, they have zero patience whatsoever. So she's, Daddy, will you come and play with me in the playroom? Yeah, baby, hang on one second. I'm texting. Daddy, hey, I'll tell you what, sweetie, why don't you go and play? Let me finish this message, and then I'm gonna come over there and play with you, okay? Okay, Daddy. And she walks away, and she goes into the playroom and starts playing with her toys. And I look down at my phone, I finish texting, and I put the phone down, and I look over at my daughter playing by herself. And I look down at my phone and the message I had just sent and realize that it was not an important message and it was not an urgent message. And it hits me like a ton of bricks as I'm looking at my daughter playing by herself and I look at this unimportant message I just sent, that I prioritized that message over my daughter. And I sat back and all these thoughts like flooded into my head of whether she knows it or not. I didn't say this, right? But I essentially showed her that this was more important than her. And I planted a seed, whether it grows or it doesn't, in her head that phones, technology, business, work is more important than my time with her. And that takes priority over my time with her. And I'm like, how many times does that need to happen before that becomes the precedence that's set of how she then interacts with her daddy, right? I'm the number one guy in her entire life, for the next 15, 20 years, hopefully 40 years, right? And she then associates love, coming to me for love, support, caring, understanding, protection, safety. And instead of coming to me and associating me with those things, she associates me with being ignored, not being a priority, being second to other stuff, you know, material things and business and things that we say are not as important as family, but how are we dedicating our time? And that is the indication of your priorities. The greatest indicator of your priorities is how you spend your time. And I'm thinking, you know, eventually she associates love with being ignored. What does that do when she gets onto the dating scene in her teens and in her 20s? Now all of a sudden, she starts dating guys who ignore her and she thinks that's normal. That's what it's supposed to be like because that's how daddy treated her. Now obviously, that's not how I treat my daughter. And I knew that if I stayed on that path, this would lead me down a horrible position. And so I reflect on my calendar. And I'm like, I feel so messed up that I just ignored my daughter while she wanted to play, right? Daddy-daughter time. That I look at my calendar and I cleared everything the next day. I was like, we're going to the zoo. I'm going to go and spend the day with her because I felt so guilty for ignoring her in that situation. And then that created an epiphany in my mind of, look at all these things, all these times that I block out during the week for a podcast, to meet for coffee with somebody, to hop on a phone call or a conference call or a meeting of some sort, and all these work things I block out time for, but I wasn't doing it for my family. And so I realized I need to start blocking out time for my family so that way things don't end up in my calendar during that family time. And so I started time blocking in the evenings. I said, hey, I'm gonna go to work in the morning, go to the office, come home at 4 or 5 o'clock, and no appointments in the afternoon. If somebody says, hey, Tim, can you hop on a podcast? Hey, Tim, can you come and speak at the local Real Estate Investors Association or meet with me for dinner? Hey, I can't. I'm sorry. I have a prior obligation. I have a commitment. I have an appointment with my daughter, with my wife, with my son, with my family. And by blocking out my calendar in the evening, it allowed me to do that. Then I started doing it on the weekends. Then I kept on constraining my schedule even further, so that way I could block out more time to be very present with the family. Now, a couple things. If I'm present with the family, that means during the work hours, I need to be present and focused on work. And I had a very clear conversation with, my wife and my kids, and tried to explain that to them, that if I'm all in during family time, I need to be all in during business hours at the same time, right? And so that way I can differentiate the two. The other thing is, I thought I would lose out on business because I wasn't available and I wasn't saying yes to everything more often. Hey, well, I got to go meet with that client in the evening. I got to meet with that potential private money investor in the evening. I got to, on the weekend, somebody wants to grab coffee with me. And what I found is when I said, hey, I'm sorry I don't do weekend meetings. I'm sorry I don't do evening meetings because I dedicate that time for my family. And it's just, I'm not willing to trade family time for extra dollars. And when I explained that to people, when I explained it to my private investors, you know what one of the guys told me? He goes, man, I respect that so much. I want to do more business with you because you value relationships over transactions, over just making more money. And so that's what I'm looking for in core values and alignment in my business. And Tim, you meet that. So I want to do more business with you. I want to lend you more money. I trust you more. I respect you more. And I know that you're going to respect me, and you're not going to call me in the evening when I'm trying to spend my time with my family, or on the weekends when I'm trying to spend my time with my family as well. And so I ended up getting more business out of it with the people that I wanted to do more business with. And the final piece was I was far more engaged and focused when I was at work. I eliminated all the noise and all the ancillary things that don't really move the needle. And I got very aware of the highest impact items in my business because I was constrained by time. I had to get those things done, and I had to prioritize and focus on those things in the limited number of hours that I had at work. And so I actually became more efficient and more effective because I didn't let my schedule get filled with tooling around on social media for 3 hours at a time, or open door policy where people just come in and go and interrupt while I'm in the middle of work, and then I have to reset my mind in order to then get back into that activity. That stuff didn't happen. I put a do not disturb sign on my door and shut it. If you want to meet with me, I told my team that we need to schedule that, or I'll come in, and we'll have open hours for an hour in the morning to troubleshoot any sort of problems, get through any sort of hurdles or bottlenecks that we might be facing as a team. And then you get back to your focusing on your activities. I need to get back to focusing on my highest level efforts on my time as well. And so I ended up having more success, having more time, being happier, and being a better dad and a better husband because I started time blocking. So that, I think, is one of the most important things you can do to better schedule your time, to better control your time and have that time autonomy, is implement time blocking right now. Go through your calendar and say, hey, here are the times for things that I want to do with my family. Here are the times that I'm going to focus on the day of just working on me. So maybe you take the mornings and you time block 2 or 3 hours so you can read, so you can meditate, you can pray, you can go and work out, you can get cleaned up, you can take a walk in the woods, take a walk on the beach, take a walk in the neighborhood, right? And you're just focusing on you. Then there's a certain amount of time that you would spend focused on the financial side of things, on your business, on prospecting for deals and prospecting for investors and prospecting for opportunities, right? And you dedicate a certain amount of time in your day for that. And then you dedicate a certain amount of time in your day for those relationships. The important part that we all say, here's why I'm doing the business, but because our time is not prioritized and our time doesn't indicate that is a priority, it falls flat. So make sure that it is, right? The greatest indicator of your priorities will be the time that you spend on each one of those things. This is something I think is important for business, but it's also something that's important for life. And I want to make sure that you're not neglecting your family and your loved ones and telling yourself a story that I'm doing this for business, I'm doing this for them, but really life's not about reaching a destination, right? It's the whole journey, it's the path, maybe some checkpoints along the way, but the reality is you got to implement this stuff today. tomorrow isn't going to happen, down the road, if I just got to this point, then I'll have more time. No, that's not how this works. There's always going to be a down the road. There's always going to be a next checkpoint that you want to reach in life and in business. The reality is you got to build a business around your life rather than building a life around your business. And so hopefully this is helpful for you. Please share this video with somebody else who needs to hear it. I make this in order to make a bigger impact in your life so that way you can live a better life, prioritize things the way that you really know is important. So please like the video, give me your biggest takeaway in the comments below, share it with somebody else who might get some value out of it, and please subscribe to the channel. We're trying to drop content like this 2-3 times a week, and we love to make bigger impact in your life so that way you can scale your business, your relationships, your lifestyle in all different capacities. So appreciate you being here. Be your best.